today?
Hi there. I'm doing quite well.
God, amazing. So as speedrunners are wont to do, you have a very specific choice of game. You are doing a all castles speedrun of Super Mario World, Super Mario Brothers 4 for the Super Famicom from 1990. Can you just tell us a little about why this was the kind of game and angle you took?
Sure. So the prompt that you gave us was we should pick games and activities that are historically meaningful to us. This was certainly not the first game that I played, but this is probably, when I was a child, the game that I played the most of. Both my brother and I spent tons and tons of time playing this, and it, in different ways, got both of us into computing by and large. Not really for the reasons that I'm going to be talking about here. There's going to be a little bit of glitchiness that we'll be talking about. It's a great teaching tool, believe it or not.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's just a fantastic piece of software that I think does not reflect the time period that it was built in terms of its quality.
That's a beautiful take. I will just real quick before I let you go to start. All I want to do is rep the raffle prize for this hour. We've got a copy of Run and Jump: The Meaning of the 2D Platformer by Peter McDowell. Again, this is courtesy MIT Press. It felt like a good book to play with Tina's set today. $20 and up donations. This hour, you are automatically entered into a raffle for this book. There's ways to enter without having to donate. You can check out those rules on the schedule page, link in the chat. Run and Jump, Meaning of the 2D Platformer. All right, I'm going to get out of your way and let you do your thing. I know this is an execution, so let me get out of your hair. Tina, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And check 1 2, check 1 2. All right. Hey, everybody. There is a fantastic team behind the scenes who are working to make this go smoothly. I want to say thank you to everybody behind the scenes who's been working on this. This event, just by and large, is fantastic. Definitely a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I think that preservation of game history, of things that are easy to lose, is critically important. So, yeah, with that said, as was mentioned, this is going to be a Super Mario World speedrun. Not quite getting started just yet. Just a couple things that I want to bring to your attention because it's going to be tough to point them out during the run. This is the first and one of the only Mario games where you have two different fall speeds, even without a power-up. So I'm going to let go of jump here. You're going to notice I fall pretty quickly, and I'm going to hold jump, and you kind of float down. And that's one of a ton of examples of this hidden depth that this game has, and it's one of the things that I think has made this really an enduring classic. There's a ton of stuff like that that you're not going to, in a casual playthrough, you're not going to notice it so much as feel it as you're playing. And that's one of the reasons why I think this is really one of those games that set the standard and really created an enduring standard and is worth digging into, whether it's as a casual player, somebody studying design of platformer games, or as somebody who's speedrunning. So with that said, today I'm going to be speedrunning all castles, which is to say every castle with a Koopa Kid in it. I'm going to be trying to beat. Another thing that you don't really notice when you're, just casually playing the game, but that I just demonstrated right there. It turns out there are multiple speeds that you can kick shells at. And just small things like that. Game elements that aren't required. You don't have to understand that to play this game well or to beat the game. But you end up with, the more you learn about it, this deeper and deeper appreciation of this game. It's really an easy game to obsess about. Now, of course, speedrunning, you want to go as fast as possible. And one of the neat things about this game is that this was really designed before speedrunning was really something people were thinking about. None of these levels are designed to be speedrun. So as I go through these games, you're going to see me skipping elements, you're going to see me doing a lot of stuff. And a lot of it doesn't really reflect what a casual player is going to experience. And that's the type of depth that I think is really worth not only appreciating, but studying. It's the sort of thing that turns a game from a piece of software that's pretty good to something that's really beautiful. So up to this point, I've avoided power-ups. And we're coming up to the reason that is. You're going to see me exploit that re-grab, the idea that I can jump, and then by doing just a short jump, then I can re-grab jump after I let go of it. And that lets me kind of float downward. You're going to see me do it right here. One thing that's worth pointing out, really interesting design choice, is that Mario's hitbox, his ability to take damage, starts at his mustache. Everything above that, there's nothing there. So we're coming up on the first instance of getting a power-up, the really iconic power-up for this this game, the cape. The game does a really good job of teaching you how to fly with an asterisk. It really wants you to think that you fly by doing these big dives and swoops. And it turns out that, and most of what I say today is going to only apply to the NTSC version of this game, so the Japanese and the North American release. Turns out that you can just stay in the air forever, something that you can't do with those big swoops. All that you have to do is decide that swooping is not your playstyle. So there's a number of levels that we're going to fly over. One of the reasons that I really like all castles is there's a couple of those, but there's really not that many overall. Another thing that's, it's an interesting fact, it's something that if somebody were interested in speedrunning the game, they would need to know. But it's not something that makes or breaks a casual playthrough of this game, is that, well, let me start with this. The Super Nintendo doesn't have floating point operations. The idea of fractional numbers isn't something that the CPU natively handles. But we really want smooth motion, not just, you know, in pixels per frame. We would like fractional pixels per frame. So the way that this game accomplishes that, and a lot of games accomplish that, is by keeping track of these sub-pixel values. When Mario is running at full speed, or whenever Mario is flying, if you're pressing forward, your speed is going to fluctuate across various sub-pixels per frame values. So one of the things that we try to do, speedrunning this game, is maximize the number of sub-pixels per frame that we're moving. There we go. This is hopefully going to be a complete waste of time. I'm going to get the worst kept secret in video games. While we play through this, another thing that's going to be coming up that's really important, the way that we handle boss kills. There's a couple of bosses in this game. This is a really cool puzzle that I'm just going to skip, by the way. There's a couple of bosses in this game that you can kill by shooting them with fireballs 8 times, or stomping on their head 3 times. And completely reasonable design here. And I do mean that genuinely. This is a reasonable design. They decided to use a single integer value for the number of times that you've hit the boss. Figuring, well, if you're shooting the boss, you're probably going to increment this counter to 8. If you're stomping on the boss, you're going to increment it to 3. So the only thing that gets checked, because we only have a single integer here, is what kind of attack the most recent hit was. I'm going to be exploiting that for a couple of bosses, including the one coming up. And now, another thing, you've seen me so far primarily flying normally. In the castle, in just a moment here, you're going to see me doing a lot of spin flight. So, just like you have a spin jump, you've also got a spin flight, and you can't cape pump and stay in the air forever with that. But it turns out that it's really useful for a couple of maneuvers, such as the one that you'll be seeing coming up. generally pretty nice to get to skip a couple cycles here. Like to keep the spring for the very top. Hopefully I will be skipping just a little bit more waiting. Alright, so I need to go ahead and explain what you're about to see, or what you're hopefully going to see in just a moment. Once again, in the avenue of things that are reasonable to assume, we base the math on how we replace blocks in this game. It's based on on where a projectile, so a thrown shell in this case, is. So it turns out that the math is just a little bit off, and we can use that to be able to duplicate shells. Or, I'm sorry, duplicate blocks, not shells. And then it turns out, in addition to that, that if you collect an object over top of a duplicated block, or a block in general, but it's usually going to be a duplicated one on account of it's hard for a collectible to exist over top of a block. It turns it into a special type of block, whose properties depend on its X position. So what you saw there was I duplicated a block over a Yoshi coin, which thankfully is 2 tiles high. You can collect it irrespective of whether you collect it from the bottom or top. And it overwrote that duplicated turn block that you saw into a type of block that, depending on its X position, will give you wings to end the level immediately, a key for a keyhole, or a pea balloon, the thing that makes Mario turn into a balloon and float. Neat little power-up in this game that hopefully you won't see in the speedrun at all. So the problem is that I duplicated that block at an X position that would have given us a key. Right now the game wants to push Mario higher, and until it can do that, he sticks to the ceiling, which is nice. But the block was created at an X position where it would have given us a key, so I had to duplicate it again to the right, which is what gives us wings there. And one thing that I think is important to point out here is that these are, of course, bugs in the game's logic. But these are not things that really are ever going to impact the casual experience of playing Mario World. This is all really interesting depth that you only get to learn about once people have really dug into the game, which is one of many reasons why preservation efforts and preserving the story and the history of video games and media in general, but especially video games, is so important. All right, so this level is a nightmare. There is a really gnarly trick, which I'm going to be able to go for exactly once, which you will see after I opt out of a bonus stage coming up. So I figure this will either be very, very cool, or it'll be very funny. As long as one of those two is true, I'm going to be very happy. So we got the halfway tape just in case. All right, so we've gone for very funny, which is fine. Now that I have to ride this raft of shame, I have time to tell you about what you didn't see. So, if you align yourself to bounce off of that enemy called a blarg, you can push Mario's head against the ceiling that I just went under. And if you do that, you can dismount Yoshi on the frame that it will push you back onto Yoshi, but you'll be in flight state. I'm gonna have to go back and get another dinosaur. What a bummer. Now, being pushed onto Yoshi in flight state like that has a couple of interesting properties. One of them is that it puts Yoshi into Mario's normal flight state instead of Yoshi flight. Yoshi flight is much like spin flight. You don't have the ability to cape pump, things like that. The game doesn't like this. In fact, the game does everything that it can to make you regret having done this. Yoshi will turn around every chance that he gets, so you have to start sticking Yoshi's tongue out, and you do that in order to ensure that Yoshi doesn't turn around. And by the end of it, you've saved only about 5-6 seconds if you get that trick. And of course, if you lose it, you look silly, and you lose a lot more time than you could have gained, which is it's really speedrunning in a nutshell, isn't it? Let's go ahead and grab this dinosaur. And actually, be very thankful that I grabbed that checkpoint. Should have been unnecessary. We'll grab another dinosaur in just a moment. The one thing that I do want to mention again, I've been, of course, just kind of prattling off the technical details of a lot of what's going on here. This is the result of tons and tons of work from tons and tons of people. No single person found all of this, but the majority of these things are found because of... Oh, I don't love that. But yeah, the majority of these things are found because somebody took the time and effort, to preserve, to preserve games and then to preserve knowledge on top of that. Which is why projects like ROMchip, definitely ROMchip, are so important, so valuable. So this is the single level, I think, where it's really too bad that my camera's currently not operational, because currently I would be staring at the camera. Most of these levels were definitely designed without real speed strats or easy strats here. This is a level where, as long as you have Yoshi, you get to just hold run, right, and you press jump and hold it, and then you get to the end of the level, which is just a real delight. I think it shows the sort of the sense of humor that a lot of these levels were built with. So one of the interesting things about the cape that just got demonstrated there is that if you're in this cape flight animation and you take a hit, let's see if I can't manage to do so, you don't actually lose your power-up. It just drops you into that spinning animation, which is quite useful. You can use that to bypass quite a lot in this game that could have otherwise taken a long time. Yeah, I think that now is as good a time as any to remind everybody that what we're doing today is we are working to raise money for ROMchip. If you haven't looked into it yet, you really, really should. It is just a collection of fascinating material. You've got game histories, you've got research. There is so much to learn and so much more to preserve yet. That I would be hard pressed to name a more deserving cultural preservation effort. Now back to the theme, I think, of understandable decisions in terms of game design. When you jump onto Yoshi, Yoshi warps to your X position. This makes sense. It would be weird if it warped Mario and you had a little hitch in terms of where you ended up. And because Yoshi is below Mario, Mario's warped to Yoshi's Y position. Both of these are completely understandable, reasonable game design choices. Unrelatedly, I am now out of bounds. So after this level, we're coming up on another castle. This castle starts with a little block snake that you're meant to ride. It takes so long that I could die multiple times and still, after going back to get replacement capes, still save time by skipping it. There aren't many times when learning a speedrun I've been made angry at a game. But I'll tell you right now that learning that I didn't have to spend what feels like years of my life riding this block snake it wasn't the best feeling that I ever experienced, but I am glad to no longer ride that block snake ever again. I find this level pretty interesting. The first room is a flyover room, but it's very clear that they understood that flying over the whole level was something that you could do. Because there's a pipe in the way, off screen, just to catch you if you've been flying. Here. We're going to use that cape property one more time to get some iframes, some invulnerability frames, and bounce our way up to the exit. There's a whole lot of stuff that you're supposed to do there. You're supposed to lead some ghosts that turn into blocks when you look at them over towards that area and jump up. It's all very time-consuming. Spare cape here. I need that dragon, though. So one of the more interesting things I think about this speedrun, it's probably evident by now. Anytime that you see Yoshi, you know that one of two things is coming up. Either I'm going to be clipping out of bounds, like you saw earlier, or I'm going to be getting Yoshi wings to end a level early. There's not too much else that you see Yoshi used for in these runs. Alright, coming up on Whimsy's Castle, I personally find this to be one of the hardest levels in the game, so this will be fun. Is a skip there, which you only get to do if your speed is just so. Mine wasn't. Alright, we're coming up on the final leg of this run. I want to call people's attention one more time to the purpose of this event. ROMchip deserves people's support. I'm so excited to get to be part of this. So this boo ring that I just took a hit from. The reason that I took earlier hits was an attempt to despawn it. Here we want to pop as many of these Koopas as we can. We are looking to reduce lag, which is pretty bad in this room. All right. This is a tough trick. I'm not super good at it, but hopefully we're going to get to pull it off. Well, the good news is that I have pulled off the trick. The even better news is that I somehow didn't die. So a thing that I mentioned obliquely right at the start was that I think that video games in general, certainly a lot of retro games, are some of the best teaching tools that we have available for getting people into understanding how software works. It's easy to look at something like playing a video game and think, that's, maybe not the most didactic experience. Once you start looking into, and I'm not the first person to say this, to be very clear, once you look into things like tassing, glitch hunting in general for video games, you've got people who've made entire livelihoods out of understanding how software flaws work, and they got started understanding how software flaws in video games were interacting with their play experience. You would be pretty hard-pressed to find a better way to learn how to use a debugger than by watching the memory of an old video game, something on the NES, SNES, Genesis, something along those lines. And one of the best things that we can do to help people learn this, to help people learn not just about video games themselves, but about software, is just to make sure that they have this information preserved. It's a big deal. I would like, however, to finish this fight. Interesting thing just happened there. Bowser is supposed to drop 2 bowling balls on you. But if you hit him out of the animation of throwing a bowling ball, he just skips it. Decides to give you some weapons to attack him with instead. It's helpful. So 2 more hits and the run will end. Time here is going to be right when Princess Peach appears on screen. That's going to do it. I want to thank, again, everybody involved with ROMchip, not just for letting me be part of raising funds to make video game history possible, but for everything that you all do. It's a huge service, and it's super, super valuable. Just in case, there are some questions for the back-end techs that I'm hearing. Just in case they can hear me, but no one else. I can hear you. The good news if there's a timer going for this run, yeah, so I was keeping that running on the side just to make sure that I didn't run over. So this was done in 41 minutes and 24 seconds. It's a decent enough run, especially when, you know, every little mistake doesn't get to be met with a reset. I'm not unhappy with it.
Hello, everybody. Tina, thank you so much for that. That was such a fun performance. So many folks in the chat shouting out about. I had to put these headphones on, and now I don't know what to do with myself. Shouting out about what they were learning and seeing for the first time.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
The commitment to using games and speedruns as a way to teach about software generally. You got a amen, Tina, in the chat for that. How did that feel? I know you said that it was you thought it was like a pretty good run.
It's a serviceable run. There is a certain amount of so another game that I speedrun, one that we don't have time for me to show off here during this because there's so much amazing stuff that y'all are doing, is Final Fantasy VI. Presently, I am the fastest time in the world for the category that I run there.
Whoa!
Which is to say that run is terrible and somebody needs to take the world record already. So it is with great restraint that I will say this was not a bad run. This was a fun run. I hope that it was enjoyable. That's the most important thing.
I had a blast. I was trying to like write the intro for the next set, and my eyes just kept drifting over to watch this. It was super fun. Thank you so much. Also, we raised an incredible new chunk of money. We are at $4,300.69. So gamers never let us down. That's what I have to say about that. We are at 61% of our 7K goal. Incredible work, everyone. Great props to the community. I've been able to add some extra balloons to the wall. Tina, thank you so much for being on and a supporter of ROMchip. Incredible to have you here. And yeah, I look forward to learning more about your Final Fantasy run.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the amazing work that you do.
Oh, no problem. Of course. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much again for joining us.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. Woo! All right. For folks just joining in, I'm Lane Nooney. I'm the managing editor for ROMchip, a journal of game history. We are who is hosting this whole kind of 12-hour experience. If you've stumbled in here from somewhere else on the internet, we just started at 11 a.m. We're going to 11 p.m. Eastern, so we still are in early hours of this fundraiser. So ROMchip, a journal of game histories, that's the project we're fundraising for today, is an open access hybrid audience online venue for the publication of game history. So what this means is that first we develop, solicit, edit, and publish work across a range of formats, from traditional academic articles. We've got interviews and oral histories with, all sorts of people who were involved in the making of games across its history, short essays, translations, dealing with everything from digital kind of video games to board games, analog games, sports, and play. Second, we are open access. We have no paywall, no advertising, no logins, no predatory publishing model. Our authors keep their copyrights. We are trying to model a different kind of world for what intellectual production and research publishing can look like. And last, we are hybrid audience. So what we believe in is a big tent for game history. We think you shouldn't need a PhD to be able to write for or interview for or read a journal like ROMchip. You can find us at romchip.org. That's the journal. And our donation site is donate.romchip.org. We are fully reader / kind of fan, subscriber, friend of ROMchip funded. This is how we make our annual budget. So every single penny you have goes directly to people who make this journal possible. Our current Tier 1 fundraising goal of $7,000 pays our basic operating costs. That's our platform hosting fees, our incredible copy editor. But we don't just want to hit that goal. We want to smash it. We have goals of 9K and 11K. And hitting those would mean that we can pay more writers, pay more translators. We can just pump more game history into the world. So don't just hover over that donate button. If you're in a position, click it, drop us some funds. Truly any amount moves that ticker up. So are we ready to bring on our next streamer, guys? I like that I hold this as if it makes a difference. It makes